welcome to Insomniac Live. This evening we're going to be discussing preparations for NaNoWriMo. I'm really excited to be here with you, and I'm really looking forward to doing this discussion. And this is the first time I've used a PowerPoint slide, so if you encounter any issues, or if you'd like a copy of this PowerPoint, please consider donating money to my Patreon. I will be talking a little bit about that later. My Patreon is going to be providing discounts on my editing, access to these slides, access to special chat channels with me, as well as access to critiques and short stories that I will be writing and sharing with all of you. So let's get tonight's episode rolling here and get on to our topic. To those of you who don't know, NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month. It is a month that we dedicate ourselves to writing a novel. It's a great deal of work and it is a lot of fun. So please consider joining if you haven't before. Even if you don't quote-unquote win, it's a wonderful experience, and I think every writer should do it at least once. As I just said, NaNoWriMo stands for National Novel Writing Month. Every year it happens in November, and writers from around the world get together to collaborate and share in this writing experience. It's a really kind of rapid-fire, crazy sort of thing, and it's a lot of fun and can really develop some fantastic relationships with writers and editors around the world. You can sign up through their website and be part of their discussion forums. There are probably local meets. It's a wonderful thing. So before I get ahead of myself, during NaNoWriMo, authors try and write 50,000 words in a month, which evens out, as I say here, to about 1,700 words a day. Really, it's 1,660, I believe. But it sounds like a lot if you haven't done it before, but it's actually very achievable, and we'll be talking about some of that today. NaNoWriMo also has a really big community of writers. Write-ins pop up everywhere. I've seen them all around me, and I live in southern New Hampshire. It's a little rural out here, and we have them pop up in local coffee shops or at people's houses. And what these write-ins are is you get together and sit down at a place to write as well as socialize a little bit. But it's this incredible, almost electric atmosphere of people just pounding at their keyboards, and you know, it's a feeling. It's something I can't really quantify in words, and I strongly suggest you participate in it if you haven't done it before. The point of National Novel Writing Month is to get your novel done. You don't have to win, you don't have to reach 50,000 words, but the intent is to, all of us have these distractions and things that pull us away from our writing and our work every year. And NaNoWriMo is a time to just say, the heck with all of that, I'm going to write. And it encourages you to set aside time and create good writing habits. There are downsides, and I recognize that there are very real problems and issues and mistakes that have been made in NaNoWriMo before. And I'm going to kind of gloss over a couple of those, but I still encourage everybody to give it a go. So, I know it sounds like it, but 1,700 words in a day isn't really terrible. It's about 3 pages in Word in 12 size font and not double spaced. And it doesn't, you've probably written more in college papers in a lot less time with tighter deadlines. And you've probably done it on a lot less sleep with a whole lot less excitement about it. So it's not as bad as you think, and that excitement kind of builds and sustains itself all month as you work on this. I can tell you that for myself, I can write 1,000 words in less than an hour if I'm really in the zone. So what you're dedicating is, give or take, an hour or so to write a day. And for a month, I think most people can probably carve out an hour a day to spend on writing. And you don't necessarily have to do it every single day, but if you don't, you're going to fall behind real quick and you're going to start finding yourself in trouble. But I've had days where I had to skip a day because life happened, or I got a lot of words done the day before and the next day I got busy. You don't have to just hit 1,700 words or the 1660. You can write more than that, you can write a little less than that. It's just a goal that you're setting for yourself. And it's an achievable goal, and every day you can see yourself chipping away at it. And an hour a day to spend on writing isn't a ton of time. As I said before, the goal here is to write 50,000 words. It doesn't have to be a complete work. If you are able to complete your novel, that's fantastic. But most novels, 50,000 words is at least a good chunk of it. Average novel size, generally speaking, is 65,000. And that being the median, give or take. So even if you don't accomplish the 50,000 words, it's a really big chunk of your work, and it encourages you to just get it out. Get that novel out of your head, get it out of your heart, get it on the page, and have it going. Like, get it done. I have personally witnessed an author I know write a novel in one day. It was live, he updated it in real time. Now, this gentleman I'm talking about, his name is Randall. He is a lifetime writer. He's been writing 1,000 words a day, every single day for I don't even know how many years. He's a professional editor. He's worked at Disney, so most people can't do this. But I've witnessed that it's possible. So if you don't think you can write 1,600, just think about the fact that I know somebody personally, I have seen him do this, has written a novel in one day. And he runs a workshop where he will help you, coach you through writing a novel in, I believe it is 3 or 4 weeks. And that's not starting the novel on day one. You do writing exercises for the first week to learn some of the foundations. It's a really phenomenal class. I'm happy to give some more information about it to anybody who wants to know. The gentleman I'm talking about is Randall Andrews. He is the head editor of Jack Cole Publishing. Good friend of mine. He's been one of my mentors in writing, so I have nothing but the highest regard for him, and he's proved to me that this is possible. So when you're getting ready to do 50,000 words, you obviously have to prepare. You can't just jump in and do 50,000 words all at once. It doesn't work so well. So there are a few things you need to put in advance. The first thing you have to do is come up with a plan, an idea. What's your story going to be? Do you have an idea for a plot, a setting, characters? You have to kind of get your head into the game and come up with what you're going to do a little bit in advance. I know that you can hit this full bore and go at it writing your pants off without any kind of guidance, but usually people who try that hang midway, because the midway blues is the hardest part of the novel to write, at least for most writers. Your mileage may vary, but you're going to want to plan at least a little bit, like, what am I going to write this year? What genre am I going to write? And no offense to you pantsers out there, but I am a firm believer in an outline, at least in so much as you create a couple of scenes. Now, I discussed this a little bit later, so pantsers, I'm not forgetting you, but outlining is an important step for most people, and most of the time here, if you don't outline, you're going to run yourself into trouble. And outlines are just giving yourself kind of a roadmap that you can deviate from wildly, but at least helps you organize your thoughts in advance so you know, give or take, where you're going. If you decide to write your pants off and don't do an outline, at the very least have a really good idea of what the end of your story looks like, so you can make every word count in getting to the end of that story. And it's something that you're going to want to work on, because, as I said before, a lot of the time, if you don't outline or have a plan, you end up wandering around in the weeds, and your story doesn't have a direction, you don't really know where you're going to go with it, and you get stuck halfway through, and it hangs, and that's the most frustrating experience for a writer. So I strongly recommend, at the very least, having an idea of where your story is going. Set aside time. In order to be a writer, whether it's NaNoWriMo or any other writing, you need to set aside time and give yourself space to write. Look at your day, figure out when you want to create this time, how, and why. Whether you're a mom who wakes up early to write before her kids are awake and she sends them to school, whether you do it just after sending the kids to school between that time and the time you leave for work, whether you do it in the afternoon, whether you do it during your lunch break, whether you do it late at night when there's nobody awake but you, however you want to structure your writing, go for it. But you have to set aside the time. And finally, prepare your writing space. That comes with a couple of things. I'm going to go over each of these in more depth in coming slides, but you're going to have to prepare your writing space, because if you're trying to prepare it or don't have one set aside for yourself while you're writing, you are going to find it impacts you negatively and can damage your creativity and can damage your pace. So let's start with the first point. Let's talk about planning your story. So you should discuss what genre you're writing in. Where are you starting? Are you writing a cyberpunk? Are you writing a fantasy? Are you writing historical fiction? Are you writing literary fiction? Are you writing fiction at all and are in fact writing nonfiction? That is the first kind of decision you want to make. And you don't have to lock your genre down. You can have sort of a nebulous idea of, I want to write something high fantasy with steampunk elements or whatever it is. You don't have to be specific like you are when you're done and you're getting ready to categorize your book for publishing. Just come up with an idea. Second, you're going to need to come up with your point of view character or characters and come up with some information about them. One thing I like to do is I like to create character profiles. They are notepad files on my computer that have a character's height, weight, eye color, any interesting scars, a little bit of their history, some of their personality, little details that kind of bring them to life in my head. You can do this for multiple point of view characters. You can do this for just one point of view character. However you choose to go about, that's up to you, but I strongly recommend at least starting with the character you're going to be following around the most, and write up some information about them. It can change, it can be adjusted. This is just to kind of start organizing your thoughts. From there, you want to come up with some plot points you'd like to hit. So once you have your main character, you have this sort of idea, think about some of the points you'd like to hit. Like, wouldn't it be cool if he did this? Oh, maybe he should do that. Or maybe at the end of the story he could do this thing. Or just spitball these ideas. You can write them all out on paper. You can type them all out in a notepad file. You can lie back in bed daydreaming them. However you want to come up with these ideas, just let your mind kind of wander and think of these things. Much like the genre, from there you want to kind of decide what the world is you're writing in. If you've decided you're going to do fantasy, are you doing this epic Tolkien fantasy? Are you doing something really gritty and dark? Do you need to do any world building? Are you creating a world from scratch? Or are you using our modern world outside my window? Or are you using a world from history? Are you going back in time? Do you need to accommodate for magic in the world or technology? Or is this taking place on a planet where there's no gravity and everybody kind of floats around in little bubbles? I mean, whatever your idea is, just think about some of the things that go with it. And finally, think about who your audience is. Is this going to be for young adults? Is this going to be for adults? Are you writing an erotica that's for 18 plus? Who are you writing this for? That will also help kind of give you a deeper understanding of, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to do, and is this age appropriate? Because most adult fiction, the main cast isn't a bunch of teenagers, and they aren't probably going to be in high school. For a young adult, you're writing that particular group, give or take, most of the time. Or at the very least, you're writing people of that age, even if they're not in high school, because your world doesn't happen to have high school in it. So that's something that you really want to work on. I apparently didn't add, the neat little fade on this tab, so I apologize in advance for that, but the importance of outlines. So outlines provide structure for your thinking. They provide structure for your work. They can be detailed or loose. They change as you write. Don't get locked into what you've written. You are not shackled to whatever it is your outline says. This is not a high school or college paper. They're just a really good way to get started. So come up with a series of events in loose chronological order, and they help you keep things in mind, because I know, at least for me, when I'm working on a story, I'll come up with something really cool. And if I don't write it down, if I don't get the idea, at least on paper somewhere, it leaves my head, and then the rest of the day I'm left wondering, oh, what was that idea I had? That was so cool that it's gone. And I'll get so mad. So it doesn't have to be super detailed. I know for many people, their last experience with writing an outline was in high school or college, where you had to write an outline of your essay and turn it into teacher. This doesn't have to be anything so stressful or rigorous. It can be light and easy to do. There are many different types of outlines. There are many different styles of doing them. Personally, I find using Blake Snyder's beat sheet is a phenomenal way to organize your story into a neat 3-act structure. You can find it by searching it on Google. You'll find his book, Save the Cat. It's a really good example of how to run through this. Now, he's a screenwriter, but the 3-act structure is still something that you use in screenwriting, in video games, in writing by hand. It's in mythology. You can't get away from it, because it is the structure in which we as human beings tell stories. Now, you can argue whether it's 3 acts or 5 acts or 12 acts or 30, whatever it is you want to do, but the basic structure of rising and falling action is the same pattern, more or less, through all of them. And getting that feeling of building tension and then releasing it here, and then building tension and releasing it here, and carrying it through to the end, that's really what you're aiming for. When you do start your project, when you get your writing going, when you've got this thing happening in your head, an outline can give you a direction. So I'm sitting here pounding away thousands and thousands of words, and I hit this wall of, oh yeah, what was I going to do next? Where does he go from here? So I glance at my outline, and it says, oh, right, he was going to do this thing next. Or this was the next beat I had planned. How am I going to get him here? Or do I want to go there at all because I've got something really neat going in this area? And it gives me a little bit of options, and it gives me a little bit of breathing space to pause, think about my next step, and get there. So it's a really important tool, at least in my opinion, for writers. And even if you decide you don't want to write with the outline next to you, the process of sitting down to organize and structure your ideas means that you're not going to hang in the middle of your book without knowing what to do next, because you've already come up with it. It's already there in your hands. It's more or less present. Now, yes, you might have moments where you sit down and go, oh, how do I get from point A to point B? What am I going to do that? And, you chew on the head, the nib of your pen, and stare off into space and have another cup of tea, or maybe a cup of wine if you're, that writer, because I know I am. And you might chew over that for a little while, but you're not going to have the same sort of hang where when you get to the middle of the book, you're like, well, now what? I have no idea where I'm going next. I don't know what the plan is. I didn't plan this far. Oh gosh, what did I do? It really protects you from that experience. In contrast, there are a lot of writers who like to write by the seat of their pants, which is not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It just is. But if you're going to write from the seat of your pants, start with your ending in mind. Know where you're going. And that gives you a direction. So if I'm going to leave on a really long road trip, I usually know what my destination is. If I'm driving cross country to California, I know I'm going to California. Now, if I don't plan a route and specific things I want to see along the way, that's okay. I still know that from here, I'm headed straight west, and eventually I'll get to California, even if I don't know exactly what roads I'm taking. It might take me longer to get to California that way, but I'm still going to get there. So if you don't have your destination in mind, your journey isn't necessarily going to take you anywhere, because I know of I leave the house and don't plan where I'm going, I'm probably going to end up somewhere with ice cream, and I'm not going to get very far. Because, well, ice cream. So, when you're pantsing, you're going to want to come up with your ending. Think of a couple of plot points you want to hit, like major beats of your story. The character's mother needs to die here. Or, it would be really cool if he and his buddy did this. It's not to stymie. The point of outlining, and this isn't to stymie your creative flow, because in the moment, if you get this instinct that I should really do this, this is going to be good, run with it. Things can change, things can be fluid, but coming up with a couple of plot points, like big things you want to hit along the way, can help give you some signposts that, oh yeah, I'm on Route 66 now, that means that I'm headed this way. So it's a little bit looser than outlining, which kind of gives you a little bit more structure, but it still gives you some direction, and I think it's really important when you're writing to have direction. I've heard this argument a lot. A lot of writers will go back and forth forever about which is superior. And I'm going to tell you straight up, neither's superior. They do accomplish things in different ways, but ultimately the end goal is you're going to write a book. And whether you outline or not, the book is probably going to be equally good or equally atrocious regardless. So this prep work you're doing, however you choose to do it, is okay. I will completely validate what you choose to do unless you choose to do absolutely nothing, in which case you are going to suffer for that a whole lot more than you need to, and it won't help you. And finally, if you're not an experienced writer, you are probably going to find that outlining, even loosely, helps you create a more coherent story and gives you a better roadmap. Like I said, there's no one right way, but I really think it's important for people who may not have tackled this before. In the rush of NaNoWriMo, trying to come up with your story in the middle of it, if you've lost your way, is extremely difficult and very stressful, and can lead to a whole lot more pain and woe than needs to happen. So even if you think that outlines are for us nerds in glasses sitting in the back of the classroom, I strongly suggest you try it. Next, we talked earlier about creating time for writing, and we're going to dig a little bit into what that means here. So, writing requires time, it requires dedication. If you want to be a writer, not just somebody who has written something, but if you want to be a writer, and even more importantly, if you want to be an author, you need to dedicate yourself to the craft. You need to dedicate yourself to writing. You need to dedicate yourself to doing the work and learning the art form. That means that you need to carve out space in your life for it. I know that it is not possible for everybody to carve out space every single day. I know that life happens, that things occur, that there are ups and downs, and things get confusing and difficult. But if you want to be a writer, you need to dedicate time to it. I am a violinist. I have been playing violin for 26 years. I am very good at it. In order to get to where I am, I needed to dedicate time to learning my instrument. In order for an artist to get good at what they do, they needed to dedicate time to their work. You aren't going to get to a high level of achievement without making space in your life for that art. And unfortunately, sometimes that means sacrificing other things. That means that instead of going out with your friends for coffee, you stay home and write that one time. That isn't to say you need to be a shut-in who never sees their friends and never spends time doing anything but writing. But if you're going to do this, you need to create time for it. And NaNoWriMo is really good at helping authors and writers and everybody create time and space in their life for writing. Because it has that challenge, it has that reward at the end. Everyone's doing it together. It's just sort of this, like I said, it's this electric feeling. And this is a great time to decide, I am going to make space in my life to write. You don't have to spend a really long time every single day to get good and to make your goal. And even if you don't make your goal for NaNoWriMo, it's a good practice to get into. An hour, 30 minutes. When I'm teaching my violin students, I ask them to please practice 30 minutes a day. And some days that feels like it's just too much. When the kids are screaming, when you have so much homework you don't know what to do with it anymore, when you worked 15, 16 hours and are just dying. I understand. But if you want to do this, you need to make time for it every day within reasonable limitations. If you can't manage to give yourself an hour of writing time, give yourself a word count goal. NaNoWriMo's is about 1700, like I said, it's 1660, but you can set a goal that works for you. The gentleman I mentioned who's taught writing, who I aspire so much to be even remotely able to resemble what he does, he says write 1,000 words a day. And if that 1,000 words a day is nothing more than, I hate the person who made me write 1,000 words a day, if it's nothing more than, I'm so tired I can't do this, if it's nothing more than a journal entry or pouring your feelings out on a page, it doesn't matter. 1,000 words a day. That's a pretty achievable goal for almost anybody, and I can tell you when I'm going, my 1,000 words just melts away. I can get 1,000 words out in 15, 20 minutes if I'm really in the zone, if I'm really in the place where I'm just pounding away at my keyboard and everything's just sort of flowing out of me. And every writer has probably had that experience at least once in their life, so you all know what I'm talking about. It doesn't need to take forever, so don't be intimidated by the fact that it's over 1,000 words. Over 1,000 words, in Word, it's 3 pages. I think almost everybody can write 3 pages in a day. And finally, you don't have to force it. If there's a day where you just can't do it, if you have a day where you're sick, like really sick, or something really bad happened, or life is just there and happening for you, that's okay. Even during NaNoWriMo, if you take a day, it's not going to destroy your ability to continue and even to finish or win. I've done NaNoWriMo about 3 times now, and I won my 2nd year. And there were days that I took off. There are times when the words came really hard and fast, and I way overshot my 1,700 words. Or there are times where I only managed 500 because I just couldn't get my head into it. That's fine. And above all, be patient with yourself. Understand that life happens. And it's okay that life happens. Don't castigate yourself for having life happening. And finally here, let's talk about preparing your writing space. The place in your world for your writing. And this means the physical one. I'm not talking about necessarily just in your head. First, you want to clear the space of distractions. So, I know for me, and as much as I hate to admit it, having my desk be a mess is a distraction for me. Because it makes it harder for me to, I need a pencil for this, and then I have to fumble around and move 3 cats and dig under things and move my yarn and my knitting and, oh gosh, where did I put that pencil? And that takes me out of the moment, and it gives more time for the idea to get away. That distraction might be locking your pets out of the room. I know for me it would be more distracting if I tried to do that because they would scream at me from the doorway and I would never get anything done because, you know, cats. So, but there are a number of ways. Whatever you find really distracting, just cut it out of your writing space. And if you have to take a tablet or a laptop and go sit at Starbucks with headphones on so that your world, your life around you isn't there anymore, or if you have to go to the library, I've done that more than once, you can do that. Whatever your writing space is, get rid of those distractions. They're only going to slow you down and they're going to hurt you in the long run. Second, consider shutting off the internet. I can't tell you the number of times I have sat down to write and 3 hours later I realized that I am on a Wikipedia article about something completely unrelated to my book and I have no idea how I got there. Or I've been on Facebook for 3 hours and haven't written a word, but oh geez, look at my friend's cat, isn't she cute? The internet is a major distraction. Consider shutting it off. You can do your research, you can do your planning. If you want to incorporate your research and planning into your writing time, that's fine. But just try and keep yourself on task. And the internet, as much as I love it, as powerful as it is, as wonderful as it is, try and kill it dead for an hour, because you will find yourself so much more productive with your writing if you murder it for an hour. And also the constant ping of your email messages, nobody will be able to distract you as easily. I know a lot of writers who write to music. I am one of them, and I can say for myself that the best music I have found to write to are movie scores. They do a wonderful job of capturing different emotions and moments. So if I'm writing a sad scene, I can grab, a soundtrack from whatever it is and have this really poignant music in my head, just stick that on repeat while I'm writing this sad, emotional, difficult scene. Or if I'm writing this really broad, exciting action scene, I can set it to do that. I mean, movie scores to me are perfect for creating the emotional tension in a scene. I know a lot of writers also who find music to be really distracting. They get lost in the music and don't really focus on their writing. You have to figure out what works for you. For me, I find music helpful. And I like to prepare what I'm going to listen to in advance, so I'm not sitting around during my writing time fishing for things. So I'll create playlists of different moods or different genres or whatever it is. I'll make all these playlists and come up with these different ideas, and I'll put them together in advance. And honestly, in some ways, that's fun by itself, because I'm like, oh, I want to listen to this while I'm writing this scene. This is going to be so cool. You can see the fireworks going off in my head. Another thing to do is make sure you tell people when you're going to be writing and ask them to leave you alone. I know this can be really difficult if you've got kids, because kids don't understand that mommy has to sometimes go to the bathroom, and they don't even like to leave you alone then. Or daddy has to go to the bathroom, because, it happens to both. But if you can find, if you can have a partner watch the kids for an hour, or a friend, or even if you give in to temptation and have them go watch TV for an hour, but make sure that people know that this is your time, this is your space. And just charging into it, demanding that you do something else, like your space, and like this time doesn't matter, it's disrespectful, it's going to damage your ability to write. And as a writer, a lot of what we do is solitary. And it's okay to ask for a little time and space, and that's just a general daily life thing. Like, if you need space in life, ask for it. It's an important thing to have. Also, shut off your phone. Again, turn off the internet, turn off Messenger, so people aren't going to be blowing up your contact information, and just be with yourself and be quiet. Next, you want to choose your writing program and get to know it a little bit. If you are going to be using Scrivener or YWriter, learn how to use the program a little bit before NaNoWriMo, because if you've never used Scrivener before and you're trying to jump into it, you are going to end up with a headache and you're going to want to set it on fire. If you've not really used Word before and don't know exactly how to use it or aren't comfortable in it, take a little time and play with it. If you're going to be writing it out longhand, make sure you've got pens and pencils available to you. Make sure you've got your notebooks, because you're probably going to need more than one, ready for you. And make sure that you have your space prepared for yourself to write in. And make sure you have good light, too. That's part of that. And finally, don't write while you're hungry or thirsty. It will distract the heck out of you. And, you can bring snacks into your writing space. Bring a glass of wine, bring some tea. I am infamous for having mugs of tea all over my writing space. So that is, one of my downfalls. I'm currently looking at about 4 of them. And I probably should bring them downstairs and refresh them at some point, but I haven't done it yet. But whatever it is for you to not feel peckish and not get distracted, have some cheese, have some crackers, have some goldfish, have a couple cookies, whatever it is. Don't you know, I recommend against things like potato chips that'll get your hands really greasy because then you'll get it all over your keyboard or you'll have to clean your fingers every minute or two. So I suggest against things like that or dips that you can drop on your keyboard, things like that. So, you know, but we're all adults here. We can figure out what we want to snack on and how we want to snack on it. And if you get crumbs in your keyboard, well, that's your problem and I'm not going to mother hen you about it. But that is something to consider. So that's pretty much the extent of what I have here for this show, for this discussion. I'm gonna let's go back to the first slide. I'm gonna leave this open. I received a question early on here about some of the potential inherent dangers in NaNoWriMo. So I love NaNoWriMo and I'm a wholehearted supporter of it, but as was said, there are some dangers. One of them is I have seen people try and write too quickly and think that when they've hit the end, metaphorically speaking, because not too many people actually write the end at the end of their novel, think they're done and think it's ready to go and that the world needs it right now. And that really isn't the case. So don't make that particular mistake. I've seen people and myself personally get so wrapped up in NaNoWriMo that the rest of the world kind of drifts away. Now that writers tend to have a habit of doing that to begin with, but we do need to sometimes pull our head out of the clouds and come back down to daily life. That's an important thing to realize too. NaNoWriMo can also create a lot of anxiety around writing. Like, oh gosh, I missed my word count. What am I going to do? Oh no, oh no, oh no. That's something that you also might might experience and have to contend with. You don't need to worry about that so much, but it is something that can happen. The thing is with NaNoWriMo, the only thing you're competing against is yourself. And if you don't make 50,000 words, you don't make 50,000 words. Nobody's going to come to your house and shake a finger at you and say, you done bad. No publisher's going to say, well, they didn't finish NaNoWriMo. I don't know if I want to do this. That's never going to happen. So recognizing that you don't need to be afraid of NaNoWriMo is a big thing. I have also seen some people get stupid and competitive, where they think that because they won NaNoWriMo, they're something super special, and everybody else, doesn't deserve whatever it is. It can be a real ego trip for some people. Don't be that guy. You wrote 50,000 words, and that is a big achievement. You should feel proud of yourself. You should feel really good about that. But that doesn't mean you're better than the guy who wrote 50, or the person who chose not to compete at all. It's not, because there is a lot of time where quality and quantity are not the same thing. So don't make that mistake. And don't think that just because you run NaNoWriMo that you are somehow a master writer, that you're somehow better than anybody else, because you're not. What will mark you as being a really good writer or a high quality writer is going to be the writing. The proof is in the pudding, ultimately. I just received a question for people who have, I was asked to clarify what winning NaNoWriMo is. Now, there is a contest. I believe there are multiple contests run over the course of NaNoWriMo that you can win, but when I talk about quote-unquote winning NaNoWriMo, that means that you've reached your 50,000 word goal. That means that you have mostly written the novel. That means that is what is a winner of NaNoWriMo is. You get this little badge you can put up on social media and yay, go me! Excuse you. Sorry, I was talking with my hands and my cat decided that was highly offensive and slapped me. So, now she's giving me the look like I have offended her ancestors. Speaking of dealing with distractions and pets and problems. So those are some of the things that you can encounter in NaNoWriMo. Another thing is that kind of goes along with people thinking that their novel is done. Your novel isn't done after you've finished writing the first draft. chances are you're going to write a second draft, maybe even a third or a fourth. This sound familiar? You probably went through this process in high school and college writing papers. They made you go through drafts. You couldn't submit your first draft, no matter how good you thought it was. So you're probably going to go through a few drafts, and you're definitely going to do a bunch of self-editing. You may even hire a professional editor. I know that they have designated January as National Novel Editing Month. They do that on purpose, that you go through NaNoWriMo, then you have the rush of the holidays, and that gives you some space from your work, and then you get into editing it again in a month or so, and you can really dig into it. They also have what is called NaNoWriMo Summer Camp. I don't know much about it. I've kind of glanced at it, I know it exists, but I don't know a ton about it. Though they do these things throughout the year, and NaNoWriMo I think is a really wonderful resource for writers. As I said, there are some pitfalls, there can be some inherent difficulties or dangers, and you can end up with some struggles, but overall I'd say it's a pretty good experience. And if nothing else, it is an experience that I think most writers should have. So these things are important to go through and a lot of these steps that I've talked about here you should take when you're preparing to write a novel under any circumstances. The reason I'm talking to you about this the week before November is that if you're going to go through the rush of NaNoWriMo, writing 1,600 or 1,700 words a day, charging through it when maybe you've never even written this fast before, maybe you haven't written a novel at all before, all of this prep work is even more important with the pressure of trying to get the writing on the page. But regardless of whether you're participating in NaNoWriMo or not, it's really important that you do these steps and do these things for yourself before you write in general. Now, as I've said a couple times, there's no one right way to do this. There's no wrong way to go about this except to not write. So don't make the mistake of thinking that I know everything, that I'm trying to dictate something to you, but making these plans, thinking about what you're going to do, planning it in advance. Writing a novel, I've been making the comparison a lot during this discussion, but writing a novel is a lot like going on a long distance car ride. You start at home. Usually when you're going on these car rides, or if you're going on a long road trip, you do some planning. You make sure that your car has air in the tires, that the oil has been changed. You make sure that you load up on snacks and drinks. You usually like to know where you're going, give or take, even if you don't know exactly how you're going to get there. You tell people where you're going. You don't answer your phone while you're on the road. These are all things that you can use and kind of apply to your writing. So writing this novel, taking this road trip, all of these parts that we've been discussing today are like taking this road trip. And a lot of this pre-work we're doing this week is you planning to go on this amazing journey that is NaNoWriMo. And if you choose to embark on it, it will be a heck of an experience. It can be frustrating. It can be frustrating even to the point of tears, to you saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to stop. It can be really rewarding too, because every day you see that word count go up. And eventually you get to this point where it feels natural, and then you start thinking, you know what, I can do this. I can do this. And for a lot of people, they've never had that confidence in writing before. They've never had that I can do this moment in their life with their writing, or maybe in their life at all. So you have a lot of opportunities for unique experiences and really good things. And you have the opportunity to write a novel. I mean, writing a novel is nothing small. Writing a book is not a small effort. It is a labor of love, and it is a lot of work. Being an author, being a writer, putting yourself out there is a lot of work, and it is scary sometimes. It can be really intimidating to think about the number of people that might read what you've written. It's really intimidating to think, oh, what if they don't like it? What if they don't like me? These are all things artists deal with. Imposter syndrome, feeling like no matter how good you are, or no matter how experienced you are, I've been in editing for almost 10 years, and I still sometimes feel like, gosh, what am I doing? Do I know as much as I think I do? Can I do this? And then somebody will ask me a question about editing or writing, or they'll read something I've written and go, wow, that makes sense. I get this now. And I can sometimes shut that little voice up in my head for a little while and tell it, no, I really do know what I'm talking about. I might not be, a Miss Muckety Muck expert here, but I know something. I can do this. Or, my writing is good. People enjoy it. It means something to people. Recently on Facebook, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the meme going around of you have everybody comment about, and then you describe them how you would describe them in a novel. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that going around. And I put it up because, haha, this looked like fun. Maybe it could be a writing exercise. I might be able to have a good time. And you know what? I've had more people tell me that I made them cry in a good way than I've received for any writing I've done ever. I've had a lot of people thank me for what I said. I've had a lot of really good experiences getting to know my friends and thinking about if I were to portray them, the heart of who they are in a book, how would I do it? It's been a really good experience for me. And it's things like that that can reaffirm and shut up that little voice in the back of your head that says, you don't know what you're doing, you're never going to know what you're doing, why are you doing this, you're an idiot. Because all artists live with that little voice in the back of their head. It's their own little personal demon sticking them with a pitchfork every time they think they've gotten something right. So don't let that intimidate you. Don't let the fact that you don't necessarily know what you're doing intimidate you. Don't let the fact that maybe you've never done this before intimidate you or stop you. If you follow the steps that I've suggested, if you do the things that I've told you you should probably do, you can do this. And even if you decide that I don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to go your own way, and the heck with everything I say, you still can probably do this. And you know what? If you can do that and make it work, all the more power to you. Go you. Because as I said from the beginning, this is not the only way. I'm not even going to pretend it's the best way. I just know it's the way that I have seen over the last almost 10 years working with writers. It's the way that I have seen these patterns emerge. It's things that I know writers who are successful do these things. It's writers who know what they're doing. They do these things. They plan, they write outlines, or at least come up with ideas. They make time to write. They practice. If nothing else, even if you don't quote-unquote win, NaNoWriMo, every word you put on the page is practice. It's just like sitting down for 30 minutes a day like I tell my students to do and playing violin. It's just like that. It is the same thing. So even if you don't have a finished product in the end, even if you've just managed to toss together a short story and you're not super happy with it, it's still practice. And it's practice that you didn't do otherwise. So it's valuable. It is important. Whether you set aside that time to write, whether you set aside that time to plan and to work and to do all of these things, whether you do it in November and try and write 1,600, 1,700 words a day and share in this exciting rush that we're coming right up into, or whether you just meander along, bebopping about, writing a little bit every day, not really pushing yourself super hard, but you make time, you plan, you think, you do things, you do it at your pace. Whether you do it that way or whether you do it all at once in November, you're still practicing, you're still working. And even after November, even after the rush of NaNoWriMo's done, and you take a little bit of time to breathe, because NaNoWriMo, there's not a lot of time for that. There's get it done, get it done, get it done. And there's the excitement, even when you come down from that high. Also make sure you keep some of these practices, keep some of these habits. Keep a writing space for yourself. Keep a time set aside to do your writing for yourself, even if it's not every day, even if it's not an hour a day. But make sure you make that time, make that space in your life for this. If this is important to you, if this is in your heart, if being a writer it matters to you, then you are going to want to capitalize on all of this and keep that momentum going. Don't stop, don't get stagnant, don't say, well, that was a good NaNoWriMo. Here's to doing it next year, and you don't pick up a pen the rest of the year. Don't do that to yourself. You're only going to end up frustrated because you'll think by the end of NaNoWriMo, I was really good. I got everything done, and now it feels like I'm walking through mud. There's no grease on these wheels. What's happening? What's happening is you didn't practice. Coming back to the fact that I'm a musician, I know I've dug this into the dirt already, but as a musician, I practice. And when I don't practice, I know it. Because if I'm practiced, it comes like breathing. I don't need to think about it. My hands, my bow, they do what I tell them to do, and it's done. It happens. It's like magic. It's like reaching out and picking up a glass of water. I know what I need to do, and I do it. If I don't practice this, and if I put my violin down for 6 months and didn't pick it up at all, and I picked it up again, I would feel the difference, and it would not be a good feeling. It would not be fun. It would be frustrating. It would be disappointing. It would be heartbreaking. It would be all these bad things that I don't want to subject anybody to. So keep that momentum after NaNoWriMo. Don't let it drop. We're coming up to about time to wrap this up. So I'm going to mention to everybody and talk a little bit about, I've started a Patreon. It is, as I said, it'll give you some discounts on my editing. It'll give you some discounts on some services. I'm going to toss the link here in the chat. And for those of you who are watching us on other platforms, I will put the link in the description of the video. If you choose to pledge this, you will both be supporting my ability to continue producing these videos, continue doing all of this stuff that I do in these videos. It'll give you access to these slides for future reference. I think I may even put up these videos for download through Patreon if you want to have a copy of this for yourself forever. So here's what that page looks like if you're interested. Here it appears the link, patreon.com/ehpwriting. It'll give you access to me through Discord. If you use Discord, it'll give you some, some fun little perks through there. And I use Discord regularly, and it will give you the option of reaching me there faster. And it'll give you, and like I said, most of all what this does is it supports me. So $5 a month, you get a short story, a flash fiction, a piece that I've written. And $15, you get access to my knowledge and experience. I give you the PowerPoints. I give you the opportunity to suggest topics for future streams through Discord, and maybe have a discussion about them outside of this. I know a lot of you friends of mine on Facebook, but those of you who aren't, this will give you a chance to reach through to me. I also will critique for up to 5 pages of your work every month, and adhere to the size guidelines. For $25 a month, you get access to all of the things the other tiers have, plus 10 pages of critique, as well as a 10% discount on my editing services if you choose to receive them. I may end up adding some other perks. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with this in the future. I'm hoping that when I reach my goal, I'll be able to get some better equipment so that these live streams will give you some better sound quality. I'm hoping to have a little thing made up for the beginning of them. I'm hoping to be able to give you some video. I'm hoping to be able to turn on my webcam because I'll be able to have the funds to set up a little studio in here. Nothing expensive, but I also might consider adding a second stream during the week. I've just tossed about the idea of doing a live critique session, something like that. It would be fun, a little bit less formal than this is, but this is one thing I'm doing, and I would really find it helpful and encouraging if you'd be willing to consider doing this. And if you can't do this, if it's just not in your budget, please consider sharing my Patreon if you know people who might be interested in it. And so I would really take that as a personal kindness. You are very welcome, Penner. I really appreciate you spending the time here every week. Your support means so much to me, and I am so thankful for everything that you've taken the time to do and to talk to me about. And to anybody else who's out there watching, right now I'm streaming on Twitch. If you come across this video and it's not live, please feel free to leave comments. I will see them, and I will do my best to respond to them and to respond to you. If you need to reach me, my email is Prybilski. That's EPRYBYLSKI at insomnia-publishing.com. You can send me an email, ask me questions, contact me. I'm here for you. I will do everything I can to encourage your writing and encourage your publishing and do the best I can to support you as a writer, because that's what I really love doing. So thank you again for joining me tonight, everybody. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something. I hope you found this educational somehow, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. And I look forward to seeing you guys the next time. And since you're awake this time of night already, get to writing, get to prepping, get to dreaming about NaNoWriMo if you're going to do it. You've got this, alright? You have got this. Good night.